Well, hey guys, it's Destry. Welcome back to my Oregon yard. In today's video, we're going to be working with some dried and fresh florals. I'll be talking a little bit about some of my tips and tricks for drying florals. And then we're going to be making a wreath with some fresh Statice, which will then dry and be a dried wreath. So I think this is going to be a really fun project today. So if you're new to drying florals, I have a different video which I will link in the description where I go over some of my favorite varieties for drying. This year I'm trying to teach myself a little bit more about drying flowers by just experimenting, but there are some flowers I grew this year specifically for drying. So again, check the description for that video if you want more information about what flowers I grew this year. But just to give you a little sample, these are some of my dried florals this year. So I have things like Statice, celosia, I have some Dusty Miller, I have lots of straw flower, and things like that. I also have some Gonfrina and some other things here. So you can see I have been a busy bee hanging things upside down and drying florals so that I have lots of different things to work with. So one tip I have for you when you are drying florals is to make sure to treat your flowers as you would if you were using them in a fresh arrangement, meaning that you're going to cut your florals and you're going to hydrate them. So you're going to go ahead and put them in a bucket of water and sort of condition them. Let them drink, let them hydrate fully before you dry them. And that does seem kind of like counterintuitive, like why would I hydrate them if I'm just going to dry them? But that is really going to give you a sturdy stem. For this Statice, I went ahead and harvested it. It has been resting in a bucket of water, and I think I have just enough to go ahead and form it into a wreath. So I just have a really basic wire wreath form here. And I also did a different video about making a wreath out of a different material called Persian cress. So I will link that video too if you're interested in working with wreaths or wreath making. Again, I'm kind of self-taught. I'm just trying things and experimenting and sharing them with you. But I have to say the Persian cress wreaths turned out really well. So I wanted to do something with the Statice. And so instead of letting it dry all the way and then trying to work with it dry, I'm gonna work with it fresh. So let me show you what the dried Statice looks like and kind of the colors that I'm growing. Now in hindsight, I had enough here where I could have made a wreath, but here's some that's fully dry. So you can see the foliage is dry and the flowers are dry, but once it dries, it becomes kind of delicate, right? It's a little harder to work with. Tip number 2 I have for you about working with dried florals is once you harvest them and you turn them upside down to dry, make sure you're making them into bundles that aren't too big, lots of airflow, they're dry, then you want to put them in a dark location, because if you leave them exposed to the sun, it can fade your flowers. So what I've been doing is once these are dry, I move them to my shed. So the shed isn't pitch black, but it's pretty dark in there. It's still a nice warm and dry environment, but that way the flowers aren't becoming, sun bleached. So I'm going to be keeping bundles like this in there until I'm ready to start using them for different crafting projects. So again, the reason I'm going to be working with this fresh is because it's just going to be a lot easier to manipulate this rather than drying it and then try to make a wreath out of it. So I'm also going to be trying some other materials this season, I think, for some wreath making. So stick around to the channel because you won't want to miss those videos. So I'm going to go ahead and set some of these aside. Now, once I get my wreath formed, I can definitely come back in and add little bits and pieces of other, types of the dried flowers that I've been harvesting as accent pieces, or maybe I'll just leave it as just all Statice. This is a bucket I'm conditioning, and again, just to kind of show you how I'm doing this, these are all straw flower. So what I've done is I have created bundles with a rubber band because they will shrink, and then I've let them drink in a bucket of water, and now these ones are ready to turn upside down and start drying. But you do want to give your flowers some hydration. I'm also going to be trying these China asters. I grew a lot of these this year and I've been loving them for cut flowers, but I'm going to try them as a dried flower and just see how they do. So I think a lot of preserving our gardens is about, you know, just trying different things and seeing what works. This bucket aside as well, and we are going to start with the Statice wreath. So what I've done is I had this wreath form. I kind of squished it flat. It was one of those that was kind of curved, and I don't really like the curve. The curve is, I don't know, it's not my favorite. So I step on them and I make them flatter. And I had just gotten these at the thrift store, and I need to go get a couple more. I have this one here and I have two more that are this smaller size. And I'm gonna make a loop here at the top with the wire so that there's an easy top and a place to hang it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and attach the wire to the wreath form. Now the other thing I've done, which I'm kind of regretting now, is I did go ahead and I put my stock into bundles last night. So let me kind of show you this. These are wet, these are sitting in water. But what I did is I bundled them up already, and then I realized that I put the white as a separate bundle, but I actually need the white to make this happen, to have enough. So what I should have done is made bundles with the purple and the white together. So I'm gonna have to fiddle around with this a little bit and sort of undo the white one and kind of redo my bundles as I go. That's not ideal, but it's gonna be a little bit more work than I thought, but that's just how it worked out. But I do like growing this white one because I could also do, you know, a yellow and white wreath, or I could do, you know, pink and white. You can add that white in with any color, and I just happen to have a bumper crop of the purple and lavenders. My yellow is not, I don't have as much for some reason. I did grow yellow as well. So now I'm just attaching the wire to the top of this as I'm talking. But again, I'm gonna undo these bundles, but all of the bundles are about the same size. And I've cut the bottoms of them, so they're kind of the same diameter around. But this is when I was going to hang them upside down and before I decided to try, you know, making a wreath out of them. I also have this one, unfortunately, see how it's like curved like that? So that one's not my favorite. So I might end up, in fact, I'm going to shorten this little part here too, because I want them to be all kind of the same height, and this one was a little bit long. Unfortunately, that's just how it grew like that. It must have been growing this way and been reaching for the light, so this one is not my favorite. So I might hold that piece out as well just because it's kind of funky. So I'm kind of doing double work here, but that's all right. These have been hydrating and they're kind of all bundled up, but I'm sort of undoing the bundles now and separating out. I've got a pretty like kind of a lighter purple and then sort of a warmer purple here. So I'm just gonna kind of mix these colors together, and then I'm gonna put the whites in here. Now I don't need to bundle them with rubber bands as I work my way around the wreath. That's not really necessary, but it is necessary if I was to dry them upside down like that. Okay, so a couple tips I have for you on wreath making is just to make sure that all your little bundles are kind of going in the same direction as you go, and that you're overlapping your bundles. So again, this is how it grows. It has multiple stems like this, so you can, you know, go like that. I'm gonna add a little white into this bundle. So it's almost like making like a little mini bouquet. So making sure I have all the colors. I've got a little bit of the lighter purple, the darker purple, a little bit of the white, and I don't have quite as much of the white, but I still wanna use that. Okay, I think that's good to start. And then I tend to work, I guess if this was a clock, I tend to work with my flowers pointing counterclockwise. And then I'm gonna wrap and then move on, put more bundles, and see if I can make this happen. I'm hoping I have enough here of the Statice to make this work. So I'm kind of fanning it out a little bit and then I'm going to hit it with a wire and give it a wrap. And I'm starting up here by my loop, and if I'm looking at if this is a clock and I'm looking at it, my flowers are pointing counterclockwise. I don't think that really matters. It just is whatever you feel comfortable with as you kind of start this wreath making thing. So I've got 3 loops around. Now I'm going to go in here with another bundle, and all I'm trying to do is essentially hide the structure of the wire underneath with the bundles. It's about the same size as the first one, and so I'm going to hide where I did that wire. So let me kind of show you that. So here's where I put the wire. So my next bundle is going to cover that spot where I put that wire. And before I lay it down, I'm also going to snip. I'm going to snip just any part of this first bundle that's like sticking out of the wreath form. So I'm going to give it just a little bit of a trim, but I want to leave some of that there because that creates kind of like bulk underneath for my next bundle. And again, I'm trying to hide that wire, and I want to use a lot of the Statice, but I also, I want to make sure I have enough to go around. So you can always like tuck little pieces in at the end to hide your mechanics a little bit too. So I'm fanning it out, 2.5, 3 loops around, pull it tight. Now I'm going to trim just that edge, just where it was sticking out of the wreath form. So there's my first 2. Ooh, I got a bumblebee checking me out. He's like, what are you doing with all that Statice? I'm making a wreath, kid. Have more Statice in the garden. One tip I have for you about Statice and what I've researched and learned myself is that you need to kind of keep harvesting it. So for drying, you do want to harvest it while when the blooms are pretty much fully open, but they will continue to open. So it's not the end of the world if you miss it, but what will happen is if you stop harvesting it, it will stop producing flowers basically. So the more that you cut on it and harvest the ones that are done, the more likely you are to get more, harvests. Messing with my bundle here, getting the pretties kind of up and facing me. And again, all the bundles are going in the same direction. And now I'm just gonna loop. So here's what I've got so far. Okay, I'm really hoping I have enough, you guys. I'm looking at my lot here, and now again, if I have to, I do have more purple that's not quite fully in bloom, so I could go harvest a little bit more if needed, but it is best to wait until it's fully blooming out. But I just want to make sure I have enough to do this wreath. I have to say the first couple wreaths I made with the Persian crust, it was a little rough, it was a little hard, and it's like you get kind of more confident and more comfortable the more that you make them, I guess, and the more you kind of get used to kind of the awkwardness of holding it and then turning it and trying to hide the wires and blah blah blah. So give yourself some grace. First you don't succeed, try again. It might be fun to add a few more accent pieces to this. And again, I could do that now while it's fresh, and I could wrap some of that straw flower. The only thing is the straw flower is really, really pink. It's not really purple. But I was even thinking my sweet peas. It might be fun to try making a wreath with sweet peas. But I can definitely, I could add things in as I'm building if I wanted to. Looking at how much I have left, I'm looking at my flowers and I'm thinking I need at least 1-2 more bundles. And I think by Jove, I might have done it. Fun to do things like this to kind of preserve your garden. So let me know in the comments, what do you do to capture the beauty of summer and spring? And I know in the doldrums of winter, I'm going to be really excited to have, you know, these preserved flowers and be able to look at them and enjoy them and think about all those summer blooms. Summer's a lot of work in the garden. There's like so much to do, but it's also so much fun. All right, so now I'm going to show you this because I'm kind of at the end. So this is my last bundle, and then this is my tail. So I'm going to take this tail down pretty far. You can see that's where I started. Here's where I'm ending. So I'm going to clip that pretty tightly. I gotta turn it towards me though. Kind of hold it in my lap here and mess around with it. So I'm going to trim. And then this last bundle, I'm going to kind of tuck it in. It's kind of the most crucial one because, so I like it to be a little fuller if I can, but you kind of are just, you're wanting to hide, you know, where the wreath started, kind of the mechanics of it. And then I'm going to leave a few pieces out as ones to fill in case there's some weird spots and some, you know, again, hiding those mechanics of the wreath. So this looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to be doing is lifting up that first, you know, those first flowers and kind of tucking the tail of this one underneath. So I'm tucking the tail of that one underneath that first row and laying this bundle. It's got to be just right in the right spot here. So it's a little tricky. And I'm gonna, before I do that, I'm gonna clip a little bit of this extra. Okay. Tuck it under here. Bring this that way. That's beautiful. Good. Okay. So there we go. That's the basic part. And now I'm gonna hold it on my lap here and I'm gonna clip that last bundle, clip that, those tails off of there. That looks weird. Without clipping any flowers. All right. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna go in, like I said, I'm gonna kind of adjust some things, and now is kind of the zhuzhy part. My gosh, you guys, I think it looks so good. Really happy with that. So now I'm gonna end my wire up here. This definitely makes me want to grow just as much Statice as I did this year, because for a minute there I was like, oh my gosh, I grew so much. But when you can do cool things like this, it makes it really rewarding. So I'm just tying off my wire here in the back. It's definitely not pretty from the back. And then when I flip it, I'm going to be looking for any holes, any parts where I can see the wire wreath. And then what I'm going to take individual pieces and just thread them through. Okay, so this one's got a nice long stem, but I can see a big hole here. So hopefully manipulate it from the back. See, and that just fixed that little hole. So now I can clip that, oops, from the back. I can also, you know, kind of zhuzh and like flare out things and sort of hide the wires, especially with something that's going to dry in place like this. I've really loved working with these dry florals so far. It's been a lot of fun. I've been putting together some other arrangements and bouquets, and I even approached a local restaurant to see if they wanted to update some of their centerpieces for their restaurant. They had some dried florals there, but they looked really, really tired. That's the thing about dried florals. It's like, I feel like we all have that like vision of like our grandma's bathroom in the 80s and like the dusty dried florals that are like all brown and gross, and like, I think that dried florals can look that way, right? And they do fade over time, and they can get a little dusty and faded looking, right? But when they're fresh, boy, they can really hold their color and be really beautiful if you do it right. One other spot with kind of just this little hole. So So again, sometimes just moving the flowers, pulling and moving and kind of arranging things works pretty well. When I dry this, I will let it dry flat. Another tip I have for you is, you don't have to dry it in the blazing sun. Dry it in a nice, warm location, but it can be a dark location. So as long as it has good airflow, you definitely would want something, something with good airflow. But you don't have to like lay this in the direct sun. In fact, if you do that, especially with these, they might just react badly. So be a little delicate with it. Think about drying slowly and carefully. Would not hang this to dry. I'm definitely going to be drying it flat on its back like this, so that it retains any of this, this shaping that I'm doing. All right, I think that looks really good. I still have one spot that's kind of not quite my favorite, but I still think looks really beautiful, and I had just enough. I'm also starting to get a feel for these small wreath forms. I had about 6 of them. Well, I have 3 in the shed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I had 6. I'm starting to get a feel for about how much material I need for this smaller size. And I think these will be a really good price point on the flower stand. I mean, and I think, in the fall too, it's like there's so many cool wreaths and big wreaths. And so I really wanted to focus on really kind of a handmade wreath look with the natural materials. All right, guys, well, I think that'll do it. Oh, wait, I've got one more. I've got to put it in here somewhere, tuck it in. I think that'll do it. So here is the final result. Isn't it beautiful? I could not be happier with how that looks. It's so pretty. So I'm hoping I can save up enough yellow and white to maybe do a yellow one. We'll have to see, but I'm really excited that I was able to make this tonight. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight's project. Thanks for hanging out and making a wreath with me tonight. I hope that this video motivated you to maybe try working with dried flowers, maybe try growing dried flowers, or maybe making some wreaths with some fresh materials for drying. If you like this video, can you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, share it with a gardening friend, and if you need me, I'll be doing some gardening. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.